This is Emily Burke, Kylie Keffer, and Alex McClanahan, and we're doing industry. Yay! So, anyways, the second industrial revolution caused huge social and political revolutions as well. Americans were producing things faster than ever, and due to this, Americans began to live wealthier lifestyles than ever before. In 1900, the per capita was 480, and by 1929, it was 681. Workers made the highest wages in history at this point, but the numbers of hours that people were working per week decreased. In 1926, Henry Ford made the 5-day work week. This was also followed by International Harvest, which was a company that introduced vacations, and this was kind of the start of the modern work week. In 1922, the country began the post-war recovery until 1929. Reasons why it was successful. Frederick Taylor and his theory of scientific management. In 1914, Henry Ford installed the assembly line, and cars would be assembled in 93 minutes, when previously it had taken 14 hours to do just one car. Electricity. In 1914, only 30% of businesses had electricity, and by 1929, 70%. This caused the decline of use of steam engines, and 44% of steam engines were out of use after this. People came out of the recovery and earned a lot more wages and more salaries. And employers noticed this, and they didn't want to cut the wages because they didn't want to have a strike. So they decided to lower production costs with better management, more machinery, more research, and better sales methods. With this increase in machinery, less people needed to be hired. But since they could make more things, things cost less also. The top point of this industrial revolution was in October 31st, 1925, when Ford produced a completed automobile every 10 seconds. Petroleum was also discovered in Texas, California, and Oklahoma. The iron and steel industry also grew significantly. 10 times as many houses had telephones. In this industrial revolution, there were many inventions, including rayon, light metals, cigarette lighters, wristwatches, Pyrex, paint sprayers, color films, synthetic plastics, and other stuff. Americans also consumed a more varied diet because the canning industry became pretty popular. And it was really exciting for Northerners to be able to eat fruit in the middle of winter because they could just get canned fruit and vegetables from southern states. And that became like a huge part of the meal. And stuff. Also, the chemicals industry grew hugely because after World War I, people still needed fertilizers, but most fertilizers came from Germany. And since Germany had the huge war debt, all their stuff was really expensive, and also people didn't really want to buy from Germany. So they stopped buying from Germany, and Dow, D-O-W, chemical company grew hugely from the U.S. There was also a lot of construction going on, and over this period, New York received a new skyline, including the Empire State Building, which is the tallest building in the world. It was the tallest building in the world. Also, there was a lot of construction of roads and highways. Construction of roads and new buildings spent more money and offered more jobs than any other industry. This was aided by the Federal Aid Road Act of 1916, which matched state money with federal money to build state roads, which gave the auto industry more government money as well. So it was just a cycle. And because of this, roads were built all over the place and in really obscure places like the Everglades and deserts. Kylie?
Hi. In the 1920s, Henry Ford was becoming more popular with the Ford auto industry. Ford announced the Model A in early 1928. 500,000 people fled to make down payments just after the announcement without ever viewing the car. He revolutionized the way people lived by bringing the automobile to a new extreme. Ford was a generator of mass production by using the assembly line. His business was family-owned, and it was believed that he found the doctrine of high wages. He achieved material success and brought society to new heights. He raised the factory wage from $3 to $5 a day and lowered the price of the Model T from $850 in 1908 to $290 in 1924. He was strict on his employees' work, with men watching his workers on and off the clock. Machinery was making the industry grow rapidly in the 1920s, and workers were being paid a more respective wage. Materials were becoming a sense of comfort to people. Religion was not personal, but a way of making more money. Many felt that the Bible held good tips on risk and liability. As the economy was rising, businesses were merging together to form bigger businesses. Between 1919 and 1930, 8,000 businesses had disappeared due to merging.
Ow.
The biggest mergers were electricity and powers. As the demand for electricity grew, another main merger were banks. The larger banks swallowed small banks. Men such as Mario Giannini developed 500 banks just in California, which were known as the Bank of America National Trust and Savings Association. Chain stores also grew rapidly, meaning the same store opened in many locations to make a growing company. By the late 1900s, the consolidation movement was growing rapidly. Textiles, clothing, and coal were all competing industries that were growing. Corporate profits and dividends far outpaced the rise of wages. Despite the rise of the industry, there were many unemployed, 7 to 12%. In the 1920s, the wealth of just the U.S. was as great as the European countries combined, yet America still had so much discretionary income. Although the industry was at a high and growing point, many American lives and incomes were threatened by the Industrial Revolution. Alex.
Change in the American landscape came not solely from increased family income, but from new products on the market. First, almost everyone owned a car. Americans could drive anywhere. Second, by 1929, 2/3 of Americans enjoyed electric houses. Electric homes led to electric appliances, which included washing machines, electric refrigerators, electric toasters. And during this time, America saw a rise in professional sports as well. In 1921, 91,000 fans flocked to witness a boxing match between Jack Dempsey and George's Carpentier. This show grossed over $1 million and became the first sports event to do so. Movie theaters also became widespread and would be very influential in the Second World War. Radio, also a new form of communication to audiences. By 1922, radios were already present in over 300 million homes. The radio and TV helped establish a new American culture and nationalized popular culture. Out of this culture emerged a new American man, a man who did not wish to own or start a business, but to rise up high in position. By 1930, stock owners multiplied by 5 in 30 years and went from 6 million to 20 million. To fuel this gain in education funds rose sharply in 1900. In 1900, a child had only 1 in 10 chance of going to high school. By 1931, a child had 1 in 2 chance. As wealth became widespread, many Americans believed poverty was to meet its end. They did not predict the Great Depression, though. And that is industry.